black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it, maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in, the first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is called First Things First. And my first thing today and every day, giving thanks, giving praises, and asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders. And let's go. But not too fast. If you're on the left coast, it is raining like crazy around here. Okay, so the way that the show is structured, we typically do the first hour, we look local, left coast, what's going on around here. Hour 2, national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive with a person of interest or a hot topic. Today is more or less the same, although I will say this. This is an historic moment for KBLA Talk 1580. It's an historic moment for LA, I believe, and we have a big announcement today, something that we will be sharing with you this morning, and so I'm really pleased to have the honor to be first up in this process of unveiling something truly remarkable that is happening today at KBLA, and you'll be hearing about it all day. But this report has been embargoed until right now, so it's certainly my honor to share it with you. And I'm going to bring in a partner to do that. She's partner and principal researcher at Evitarus. She designs and conducts public opinion research encompassing a broad range of issues, including candidates and ballot measures, campaigns, American social political values, and public attitudes towards all kinds of things from healthcare to infrastructure and so much more. What we colloquially call a pollster, Shakari Byerly, Good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So KBLA Talk 1580, under the leadership of Tavis Smiley, is doing something that I don't believe has ever been done before, at least not by a media outlet here. You have done, on behalf of KBLA, some extensive polling of Black voters in relationship to this election. And I say this election because it is upon us. Those ballots, those mail-in ballots should be hitting your mailbox this week. And the actual last day to vote is March 5th, the election day. This is a survey of Black likely voters, and it is giving us some insights that we wouldn't otherwise get. I think this is very exciting and important because Black voters, our voices, our thoughts, our perspectives are so many times just folded into the general polling, and people don't even really look at, well, how is Black LA or how is a Black voter receiving this information? And I think especially critical in this 2024 where Black voters could play such a pivotal role. So let's talk about it. This is a pretty, deep survey. You asked a lot of questions of Black voters, and many of them focus on issues of crime, safety, and of course that dovetails with the race for district attorney, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so we always say at KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk. And so this is our first political poll, but we're going to be doing many of these, and I think I think that's a good thing. It's certainly something we haven't seen in the city before. So, did anything really surprise you? Well, let me start with what surprises me. I was really surprised to see that while Black likely voters in this survey are very concerned about crime and very seem to feel that crime is up. They're also very, or I should say we, because it's Black Angelinos, are also very clear that we haven't had enough reform, right? That
That's
surprised
right.
me because it
Yeah.
seems like a contradiction.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. That was surprising to me as well. I think the nuance here is, what type of reform? Clearly, DA Gascon has led in the wake of the racial reckoning that happened at the in the wake of George Floyd's tragic murder, the banner of criminal justice reform in his election, his first election into office. And so, to see that he has only, 1 in 5 Black voters essentially that are supporting him, but then to see the question that 65% say that that criminal justice reform either hasn't gone far enough or that it's about right. It seems a bit of a contradiction. You would think that given the support for reform, that DA Gascon would have more support in the Black community. And in fact, 48% say they disapprove of how he is handling his job of serving the public. So I think there are Black voters care about reform, and they want to see reform, but how that's done is really important. And it's clear that many Black voters just don't feel as safe as they did just 1 or 2 years ago.
So the numbers are something like 96%, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a huge number that feel less safe than we did a year ago or 2 years ago. And it is kind of confusing because we feel like we're what it's saying, we want reform, but if you go a little deeper, maybe not as confusing because Black Angelinos may have different ideas about how we get safe. Right.
That's right.
One of the big picture things I take away from this is that, when we talk about feeling less safe and what we do about it, 96% said it's a lack of resources, including mental health services and social supports to meet people's basic needs. That is what they blame this feeling of less safety on. And 80% said lack of resources, was a huge thing. 89% are saying it's a decline in moral and family values. 88% are talking about unemployment and job loss. And then there's still 85%, which is a really high number, that say it's changes to the law to reduce punishments for certain crimes, and 83% saying not enough police on the streets, 80% saying early releases from jails and prisons, but then close to 80%, 79% saying it's poor management of the police department. I mean, this to me is like, it's very bipolar kind of.
There are a lot of different issues that need to be addressed that are not being addressed. And I think the first that you called out, 80% say that the lack of resources is a major reason for the increase in crime. And overall, 96% say it's at least a minor reason. So the investment in prevention is really important to Black voters. And I think that's consistent with all Angelinos, but specifically Black voters believe that we need more investments in prevention, in social services, in mental health, that help people have what they need so they don't commit crimes. But the other piece of this is system accountability. We need to ensure that there is accountability when people commit crimes. I think that's why you see 85% who are saying that, it's at least somewhat, the increase is at least somewhat due to the fact that there has been reduced punishment for particular crimes or lack of enforcement of the law. Black voters also see concerns with policing. It's not that people don't want police reform, but they want police to answer when they call. And so I think, Dominique, you and I are of the same generation, and Public Enemy, had a song about it. Are the police going to come to our communities when we have when we're victims of crime, right? And so Black voters get the nuance of this. It's not a one-size-fits-all, let's just get tough on crime. We need resources. We need jobs. We also need to enforce the law, and we need the police to come when we call.
So what I want to emphasize right now is that if you would like to follow along with some of these results, we got a lot to cover here. They are available on the KBLA 1580 website. It's right up top. It says KBLA survey results. You can click on it and you can actually follow along with some of the things that we are talking about. And we'll get real specific because we went candidate by candidate in the district attorney's race, and we got some surprising results as far as where Black voters, where they are right now showing support and where there's opportunity for change. 91% of these surveyed folks said they are going to vote. Right? Mm-hmm. Definitely That's going right. to vote. 7% said they'll probably vote, and only 2 people said they weren't sure. I love that. That is 2%, excuse me, not 2 people. But I love that because it kind of flies in the face of a narrative that's becoming prevalent, which is that Black voters may sit this one out. And certainly the results that we saw in South Carolina over the weekend seem to bear that out.
That's right. Black voters are not only committed to voting, but they're also enthusiastic. We have just under a third who say that they're extremely enthusiastic about voting in the upcoming March primary. Black voters stand ready to support a candidate of choice. But I think one of the interesting things about this poll is we have 48% who are undecided in the DA's race. And we're just a few weeks away. As you said, ballots have dropped. So there's a real opportunity here. The race is wide open among Black voters. This is a critical constituency, given that, the discussion about reform started with the disproportionate impact of policing and also violence on Black and brown communities.
One of the things I found remarkable too, Shakari, is this idea that Black voters they're not decided, but it's not because we're not paying attention. 51% say they are closely tracking the district attorney's race. So to me, this is a huge opportunity for all of the, 12 people running that
that's right.
We haven't decided, but it's not because we don't care.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that's a remarkably high number. So people are waiting to hear from the candidates. And in fact, we do see some shifts in support once we present some basic profiles, particularly of those that participated in the KBLA debate in South LA. We had candidates who came to our community, and when we polled, we made sure to present those basic bios to voters to see if they made a difference. And they certainly did.
I want to delve into that when we come forward, because we got data on individual candidates in the district attorney's race, how they're being perceived, what their level of support is from Los Angeles Black voters. This is an important sampling. This is likely voters, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that work was done as well when we come forward. But get used to it. We're about to turn up and amplify your voices as voters, at least on the left coast, on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Anjali.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just got an alert for a strange charge on my card.
No problem. We make sure you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card. Let's see. Did you purchase something from a t-shirt cannon store yesterday?
Absolutely not. No, I already have like 3.
$0 fraud liability guarantee. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Limitations apply.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, I just want to mention, by the way, that as of right now, LAUSD schools are open, except for one. But you should check with your school because the LAUSD is just asking that you check for constant updates with the insane intensity of this storm. Things could change on the ground in real time, and you just want to make sure to be safe. There's a lot of flooding intermittently, and this rain it's definitely going to be going hard throughout the day today and possibly tomorrow as well. So just double check, especially if you're, going to school and it's a bit of a drive or it's a ways off. I would check in and make sure that they haven't shut it down, as Santa Barbara schools have done today. So we're talking with Shakari Byerly, and she is with Evitarus, which is a research firm. And they do public opinion research on all kinds of different topics. This is actually something important for folks to know, too. A Black-owned research firm, not found every day. And you guys do amazing work for candidates and cities and health organizations and all kinds of folks. So, we are very pleased to be working with you on this.
Absolutely. It's exciting, and we're honored to be a trusted partner.
Do you think, just in your experience over all these years, Shakari, that Black voices are ignored, or that, Black voters are sort of not surveyed in this way as much as we should be?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the first and only poll about Black voters and what they think. Many times, because the Black population in Los Angeles hovers around 6 or 7%, and certainly it can be lower when you talk about likely voters. We don't show up in polls, and so if you have a poll of 800 people or 1,000 people, then you aren't going to capture many of us at random. It takes intentionality to ensure that our voices are heard and aren't just lost in the sea of everyone else's perspective. So this is really exciting. KBLA has made an excellent investment here in hearing from our community.
It's confusing, though, because even though we are a small percentage of the population, and we can be hard to reach, we vote above our weight class. I mean, we vote at a much higher percentage than the percentage we are in the population, which is why these politicians love to come to our churches, at least during election season. I mean, that's kind of an odd phenomena, right? That we vote above, even though we're hard to reach and we're a small percentage, we vote above our weight class, and we are often a pivotal vote in some of these races, despite our small presence. Yeah. So explain that a little.
We're actually voters we're actually Voters Plus. So not only do we turn out at higher rates when you control for socioeconomic status, we also bring our friends and our family members, and we tell everyone else about it. And a lot of that is deeply rooted in our struggle for full incorporation in this country, in the civil rights movement. People fought, bled, and died for the right to vote, and particularly we Gen Xers and baby boomers, we're committed to voting. If we can get to the polls, we're going to get there, and we're going to encourage our young people, our friends, and our family members to come along with us.
I love that. That's so, blackety black. Come on, y'all, we voting today.
That's right.
So I want to skip forward a little bit and talk about where the support is right now. If the election, because this polling was done recently. It's not an old poll. This is January 2024, right?
That's right at the end of January. So we're getting it hot off the press as they speak. So this is where the race stands today.
I mean, it's basically last week, right? So, so if the race was held today, that's definitely a runoff coming.
That's right. We see in the Black community, among Black likely voters, Gascon is at 21%. And I think that's consistent with what other polls have seen statewide, not statewide, countywide, in terms of his level of support. There was a recent poll, I think, that had him at 19% among the electorate overall. So Black voters are right where the rest of the electorate is. But when you look at these other candidates, few, if any, break 5%. We have Deborah Archuleta with 6%. And then we have Jonathan Hatami, who comes in third in that initial vote at 4%. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And when we look at, we ask basic favorabilities. When we read you a list of names, do you have a favorable, unfavorable opinion, or have you never heard of that person? And a majority of the candidates just don't have name recognition in our community. So that suggests that there's an opportunity for them to, show presence, to be visible, and actually communicate with Black voters.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It reminds me a little bit on the national landscape of the Republican race, where you had 1 million candidates, but nobody's really registering. Gascon, at 21%, that sounds pretty miserable. But when you've got, going down the list, Eric Siddall at 1%, McKinney at 2%, John McKinney at 2%, Maria Ramirez at 1%, Jeff Chemerinsky at 2%, Jonathan Hatami's at 4%, as you said, but we're talking about, Hatami, these are people who are already in the prosecutor's office. Archuleta was a judge. I would think they would be more well-known than they are. Nathan Hochman with 2%, Craig Mitchell with 2%, and David S. Milton with 2%. As you said, 48% undecided.
People want information about these candidates, and while there may be some name recognition, it's not high. And there were a number who said they couldn't rate, so they had heard of them, but they weren't in a position to offer an opinion because they wanted to do their homework and wanted to do their research. And if anyone is like me, I have my ballot on my table, and I have a time set aside where I'm going to take out my pamphlet and get on the internet and do my research. And that's, I think, what most voters do, and certainly Black voters. They want to make an informed decision.
Yeah, this is just fascinating. It's data directly from Black voters from basically last week. And I want to get into some of these candidate descriptions. I'm also really interested in drilling down a little bit in what people say. We gave a sweeping assessment of what people say the major and minor reasons are for the increase in crime, because this is where you can see the fact that these DA candidates have to talk about more than crime, right? It's not only safety. Safety is important. People cite it as a concern, but what we think are solutions it's much more of a macro kind of vision that black folks have here, black likely voters. We'll get into that after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump says it'll be a little while before he selects a running mate, but he did mention some names who aren't under consideration. Speaking on Fox Sunday Morning Futures, Trump said he talks to everybody, but he has a lot of good people in mind. He singled out South Carolina Senator and former GOP presidential candidate Tim Scott. Trump said he also likes South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says House Republicans are following orders from former President Trump. Speaking on ABC's This Week, the African-American New York congressman said extreme MAGA Republicans are putting Trump's interests ahead of those of the American people. Jeffries also criticized the same group of Republicans for saying an upcoming bipartisan Senate border deal is dead in the water without even knowing what's in the bill. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
When you get your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt, prepare to shout, "Jackson Hewitt, yeah!" from the rooftops. In the event you don't get your biggest refund, you'll get your money back, plus $100.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers are 5-1 on their 7-game road trip. They beat Miami by 8 on Sunday. Kawhi Leonard led the Clippers with 24 points, 21 points and 11 assists for James Harden. The Clippers wrap up their trip tonight in Atlanta, 4:30 tip-off. The Lakers are back in action today. They're at Charlotte, last game of their 5-game road trip, 4 p.m. tip. Another strong performance by USC freshman Juju Watkins. The Compton native dropped 29 points Sunday to help USC's women's basketball team win by 10 at Cal. Watkins has scored a combined 80 points in USC's last 2 games. Watkins is now the nation's number 2 scorer with 27.2 points per game. Iowa's Caitlin Clark leads the nation at 32.4. The Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers arrived in Las Vegas Sunday. Super Bowl 58 is next Sunday at 3 p.m. on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Got me a damn girl on my team.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe we have the best tag team in morning radio. Dominique DiPrima and Tavis Smiley. As the first black woman in Los Angeles to anchor a morning drive talk radio show, Dominique covers local politics like a blanket. Weekday mornings from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., Dominique passes the baton to Tavis Smiley, who talks to everybody about everything every day until 12 noon. KBLA's dynamic duo, Dominique and Tavis. It's no wonder the LA Civil Rights Department is honoring Dominique DiPrima this year at its Tell Our Story honoring black journalist leaders and storytellers event, Thursday, February 8th. Or that the John M. Langston Bar Association of Los Angeles is honoring Tavis Smiley at its 47th Annual Installation and Scholarship Awards Gala with its Community Impact Award on February 10th. We couldn't be more proud of Dominique and Tavis, who make black history every day, not just in February. If you're missing Dominique and Tavis weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Holla, yeah.
Hello, I'm John McKinney, your candidate for District Attorney. As an African American who has served our community for over 25 years, I'm proud to have successfully convicted the killer of Nipsey Hussle, standing up for justice where it matters most. But my commitment extends beyond the courtroom. I'm deeply invested in youth development. And when it comes to our police, I believe in accountability. It is essential that those who protect us are also responsible to us, reflecting the values and integrity of our community. This election, I ask for your vote. I am John McKinney, and I'm running to be your district attorney. Learn more at McKinneyforLA.com.
Paid for by John McKinney for LA District Attorney 2024.
LADWP is proud to partner with KBLA to share with you how to start the new year without bill worries. We're here to help if you're behind on your bill or need help staying current. Sign up anytime online for Level Pay to set predictable monthly payments throughout the year, including for past due amounts. You can also check out the special extended pay arrangements of up to 48 months to help pay down your bill. If you're a senior or income qualified, you may be eligible for Easy Save to receive discounts and also qualify for free and discounted energy and water saving devices. You can get up to $15,000 for past due water and or sewer bills and up to $3,000 for electric bills. But you gotta act fast. Funding is limited. You can reduce your past due bills and kick off the year right, because here at LADWP, we're here to help. Visit ladwp.com/cares today and find out more.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're waking up with me, and you're waking up with widely respected researcher, pollster Shakari Byerly. We are talking about KBLA Talk 1580 has done something really innovative. I'm proud of us, of course, under the leadership of Tavis Smiley and his vision, which is polling directly likely voters who are Black in Southern California on public safety, the district attorney's race. This is our first, but consider it first of many, because we intend to make Black voices heard and make them more of a priority in local electoral politics, as really we should be, because honestly, you know, despite our small numbers, we are oftentimes we are that, you know, that necessary component to get you across the finish line. And I think politicians know that, which is why many of them do show up in our community. So some really interesting findings. Shakari, when we talked about all of the numbers, like what level of support people have right now in this snapshot, which is basically last week, if the election were happening right now, that was part one. Part two is you gave descriptions of each candidate, and as you said, these are based off of what they gave us for the DA's debate with Tavis, right?
That's right. And these are, basically the highlights of what they show on their website as, their commitment if they are to be elected as DA. So these are just basic profiles so that when we ask questions about voter support, well, we can see how they react with information. And everybody has kind of a baseline, same information to weigh each candidate against. And we also gave them a basic description of George Gascon as well.
Right. So each candidate, including Gascon, has like a paragraph telling you about them. And then after you have them read this or listen to it, they voted again.
That's right. Say, hey, now that you've heard more, who would you support if the election were held today?
So what's the thinking in that? I mean, what are you hoping to get out of that kind of a before and after?
Well, the hope is that we can take a snapshot of how things are today, but as the race, as we get closer to March 5th, our expectation is that the candidates will reach out to our community and will introduce themselves and provide some basic information. So we try to model that. Where do people start? And then after they hear basic information, positive information from everyone, does that change? Do they make a decision? And we see that voters do. There is some movement there.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it looks like the biggest beneficiary of that, I mean, I guess it's not surprising, but the biggest beneficiary of that, from what I'm seeing, is John McKinney, who is
that's right,
who is a prosecutor, and actually there's an interview with him on our website as well, because he was on my show. There's also one of Chemerinsky, if you guys want to dig a little deeper, and we're reaching out to all of the DA candidates, so I suppose we'll be hearing more and more. But it looks like McKinney saw the biggest jump from that description.
That's right. He goes from, less than 4% all the way up to 12%. So that's a 10-point jump from the initial vote question. And we see Gascon gets a little bump of 2%, but McKinney has the largest share of growth. We also see some growth for Chemerinsky. He gets a couple of points bump. He was at 2%, and he goes up by 2 points to 4%. And likewise for Eric Sadal, he goes from 2% up to 4%. So it's really, if you look at these results, it's Gascon and McKinney who rise to the top of the list. And then we have Archuleta, Chemerinsky, and Sadal who come in next with 4% each.
I think it's pretty remarkable, but if you scratch the surface. Well, maybe I should ask you what you attribute that to before I say what I attribute it to.
Well, I think that McKinney does talk about his background as a Black prosecutor and the work that he's done in the community, and we know that when we have candidates who come from our community with experience, lived experience, that makes a difference for many voters.
Okay, so
that's a roundabout way of saying McKinney is one of the only Black candidates in the race.
Yeah. I mean, so that was my attribution. A lot of times we're rooting for everybody Black, and we're going by his description of himself. So that is not surprising. One of the things that I'm really glad you did is break out where these voters stand, because we at KBLA Talk 1580 say we are unapologetically progressive. But this isn't just a survey of progressive Black voters. This is sort of this is a random group of 500 likely voters in LA County, right?
That's right. And we have, liberals, moderates, conservatives represented alongside progressives. And so this gives a full snapshot of our community, which often isn't done. Usually if we are polled, you hear maybe one number, Black voters feel this, but we're actually able to break down the vote by ideology, by gender, by age, because our community isn't a monolith.
Yeah, it sure isn't in this poll. 17% label themselves progressive. And it's 15% who are either somewhat conservative or very conservative. So that's, the conservative, very conservative is almost equal to the progressive. And then you've got this kind of chunk of people calling themselves the most is moderate, actually. The most, right. So that liberal, moderate, kind of centrist group is by far the biggest group here.
That's 57%. 27% identify as liberal, just over a quarter, and 30% identify as moderate.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I will, in the final hour of the show, anybody who's running for DA is welcome to call in and talk about it. If you hear this, just a couple minutes, your response to this. I think that, I think this is really important. Also, you talk about who's been a victim of a violent crime. Of the people surveyed, who has been a victim of a violent crime or had someone in their family or a close friend be a victim. And I'm assuming, but, maybe I shouldn't assume. Let me ask, that the thought is to understand how being a victim of violent crime would impact your views.
That's right. And we're specifically asking about the last 2 years. So these are recent victims of violent crime. And we have about 24% of Black likely voters who say either they or someone close to them has been a victim of violent crime. And that does make a difference in their support levels for D.A. Gascon relative to his challengers. And likewise, among those who've been victims of property crime, 45% of Black likely voters say either they or someone close to them has been a victim of violent crime. Property crime. And that includes 20% who personally have been victims of property crime.
Yeah, and I'm sure, that's a huge number. Sadly, it doesn't surprise me. But when you say that impacts how people view Gascon, what do you mean by that?
Those who have been victims of either violent or property crime are less likely to support DA Gascon for reelection relative to those who have not. So lived experience, personal experience, especially in the last 2 years, makes a difference in how people vote.
Again, when you talk about the age group that we're looking at here, it does skew older. But that also doesn't surprise me because we are talking about likely voters.
That's right. Likely voters tend to be 55 and over, 65 plus, tend to be a bit more female than male. And so we see that reflected in the results, and we see that among who's paying attention. We have upwards of 60% of voters who are over the age of 55 who say that they're highly enthusiastic about voting in the primary, and that number is much lower among younger people.
Yeah, 18 to 24, you got 1%. But 30 to 34 and 40 to 44 are both at 9%. So that means, in that 30 to 45 range, you've got close to 24%. That's not bad, right?
That's right. And I think, when we say, young people don't vote, that doesn't mean that there are no young people that vote, right? We do have some 18 to 34-year-olds who are participating and committed and paying attention to what's going on. So we can't count anyone out.
I think it's interesting, too, looking at the party registration, because 76% of these folks are saying they're Democrats, 7% are saying Republican, 11 no party preference, and then 6 other. But the reason that stands out for me is because so many are calling themselves either conservative or very conservative, even though, many are, saying they're Democrats. So that means, just because you have a Democratic voter who's black, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going with the party line on everything.
That's absolutely right. Again, our community, as you know, is not a monolith. We have Democrats who are moderates, liberals, conservatives, and progressives. And so we have some differences of opinion, and it's important that candidates and campaigns recognize that one size fits all doesn't work for our community.
Yeah, well, I guess that's another great reason to keep doing these polls, because I'm sure that on, certain issues, that's going to be even more pronounced than here. Although I would say, for public safety, this is really informative in the sense that just because we say one thing that aligns with your profile of a Democrat or a Republican doesn't mean that a black voter is going to automatically check all your boxes going down that party line. And that, to me, would seem to beg for a more nuanced approach when dealing with our community. We are talking about a brand new, groundbreaking poll that has been put forth by KBLA Talk 1580. Today on this show, this is the very first place in the world that this is being unveiled. It's my honor to do so. But it is on our website now. So if you want to follow along or write about it, talk about it, blog about it, vlog about it, all that is on the table, because we would love for you to talk about this stuff. I think that this is one of the ways that we are helping to amplify black voices, black trends, black influences on everything, and most especially our upcoming election. I'm Dominique DiPrima, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count pack.
Art tells a story, your story, and inspires others in your community to do the same. This Black History Month, AARP is celebrating the undeniable impact and contributions of Black art and artists everywhere. We're thrilled to celebrate these creators over 50. Through their work and persistence, they make society a better place by bringing us all closer together. Learn more at aarp.org/Black Community.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, and we're at KBLA1580.com. In case you want to follow along, these survey results are on the website, and you can go through them yourself, or you can go through them with us. I'm talking with Shakari Byerly right now. She's a partner and principal researcher at Evitarus. She designs and conducts public opinion research on all kinds of different issues. She's got almost 20 years of experience. She's worked as a pollster for electoral campaigns, cities, counties, local school districts, community college districts, public agencies, and nonprofits. Mostly concentrated in, your expertise is mostly in California, right?
That's right, but we do work nationally as well. We're the posters for the Sierra Club in its effort to become an anti-racist organization. We polled for Vice President Kamala Harris in her run-up to the presidency and have worked around the country. We actually are just dropping today as well, in addition to the KBLA poll, a poll of Black single mothers nationally, and we are the pollsters for the great Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who is running for Senate and is on the March primary ballot as well.
Wow. So you got a lot on your plate. Evitarus is Evitarus. Evitarus.com if you want to find out more, or maybe you want to get a poll done. This might be a good time to do so before it's too late. Evitarus.com. So what in this surprised you as a pollster with such expertise on California and a Black woman yourself?
I think the finding that Black voters believe that there's a way to we have a long way to go in terms of criminal justice reform, and yet they're not supportive of the candidate in the race, the incumbent, who has made reform kind of his signature and banner issue. And when we follow up to provide people with a little information from both supporters and opponents of DA Gascon, voters were roughly evenly divided. Specifically, we shared that supporters say that his policies are designed to address the root causes of crime and institutional racism, and that they say he's the only candidate who stood up to police unions and called out racism in policing. And when we look at the results, we have a plurality. I think it's 38% who agree with supporters, but we have a nearly equal percentage, 36%, who agree with opponents, who say that his policies have made Los Angeles less safe, and that he's unwilling to work with law enforcement to ensure that there are consequences for breaking the law. So this says to me that people are looking for reform. They're looking for alternatives, but they also believe in accountability and are highly concerned with the county being less safe than it was a couple of years ago.
I mean, and I know no one wants to hear this, but that's not what the data show, right? I mean, yeah, it's less safe than it was before COVID, but it's continuously more safe than it was in the 80s or 90s, or even the early 2000s. I know nobody wants to hear that. It's how you feel. It's not what is actually going on that people react
That's
to.
right. And people are thinking about personal experience as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of aligns with the fact that 45% say that they themselves or someone they know has been a victim of property crime. So while crime overall is down, if it happens to you, it's up 100%, right? So people are often looking at things through their personal experience and their personal lens.
Yeah, you did favorability ratings both before and after that. They got information on the candidates. And that was interesting to me, that people would have a favorability impression without really knowing anything about the candidate.
Yeah, well, and you look at that initial ask, you have upwards of 70% who's saying I've either never heard of the person or I can't rate them. And
right.
So while, again, voters had some familiarity, especially with Archuleta, Hockman, McKinney, and to a lesser extent, slightly Chemerinsky and Hatami Ramirez, like you said, just because they've kind of been in the news. They didn't have much information, but when we give them those short profiles of how people describe themselves as candidates, we see some differences, namely that McKinney and Chemerinsky really bump up their support. McKinney, we have 19%, or 1 in 5, who have a very favorable opinion of him after hearing that description. And overall, when we look at the total who say they have a favorable view and the total that have an unfavorable view, and we do some math, he has a net favorability of 26 points. That's followed by Chemerinsky, who has a net favorable of 29 points, and then Gascon comes in third under that with a net favorability of plus 9. So we see some movement, and Chemerinsky and McKinney kind of outpace D.A. Gascon.
When you say
learn a bit more.
When you say net favorability, that's how much favor you have left after we subtract your unfavorable rating.
That's right. The naysayers. Yeah, that's right. We're looking at the overall. So total positive there.
When just a couple of minutes left here, but when I said to you that the DA candidates, based on this polling that KBLA just did, probably need to look at a more holistic way of talking about public safety. The reason I said that is because I'm looking at these numbers and what we Black people are blaming for feeling unsafe or the spike in crime. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not just that 96% of us say it's not enough resources. It's also the fact that, including mental health services, social supports, and helping people have their basic needs met. It's also that 80% say it's a major reason. So while other things are pretty high in terms of the people saying it is a reason, nothing is as high in terms of being a major reason for crime.
That's absolutely right. 4 in 5 Black voters are saying that is a major reason for the increase, and likely why they feel less safe than they did a couple of years ago. People believe we need more investment.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting that just 54% said that one of the reasons was defunding the police, and only 30% even said that was a major reason. So at that talking point, apparently, is not working with Black people.
That's right. This is not the 1990s when everyone wanted a tough-on-crime approach. People recognize that there needs to be a balance of prevention and then also accountability. When you look at that list of major reasons, Black voters are also pointing to a decline in morals and family values, 73%. They're also looking at a loss of jobs and unemployment, 64%, who are saying that's a major reason. And then we also have changes in policing, from more police on the streets to better management of our police department. So using the resources that law enforcement has more efficiently and more effectively to ensure that we can prevent crime and address it and hold people accountable when it happens.
Well, Shakari Byerly, I appreciate the work that you and your firm, Evitarus, have done on this survey, on this research for KBLA Talk 1580, and I so appreciate your insights into the work you've done.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Evitarus.com, or you can just go to KBLA Talk 1580 if you want to see this data. If you want to see all the data on all the projects they work on, you can go to Evitarus.com. It's time for Mindful Monday, and then we'll continue these conversations. We also have a candidate, not for DA, for Senate in the House when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump says it'll be a little while before he selects a running mate, but he did mention some names who aren't under consideration. Speaking on Fox Sunday Morning Future, Trump speaking on ABC's This Week, the African-American New York congressman said extreme